Today I'm going to talk about something that separates man from the beasts, which is not, as some in the 19th and 20th century have suggested, romantic love, the search for meaning, a need for superiority over nature, or financial worries, but the intellectual powers. I'm going to talk about the contents of question 79 of the Prima of Aquinas' Summa. First, we need to define powers. So the powers are distinguished according to their formal objects. For example, the power of sight has for its formal object colors. When we see colors, we see shapes, we see distances, and we can discern motion. Now, I'm going to talk about the two intellectual powers, which are the possible intellect and the agent intellect, and then I'm going to talk about memory and reason, which are both part of the possible intellect. So the possible intellect is usually translated into English as understanding. Aquinas says, the understanding is a passive power, quote, which is obvious from the fact that initially we are only able to understand, and afterwards we come to actually understand. So the intellect moves from potentially understanding to actually understanding. We have the ability to understand ideas, and then we actually understand them. Right? So then he contrasts this with the agent intellect. The agent intellect is the power whereby we abstract ideas from the world around us. So when I see a blob of color that has a certain shape and walks around and says woof, I abstract the idea of dog from that. And then because I have the idea of dog, that idea is then understood by the possible intellect. So you have the agent intellect does the abstracting, the possible intellect that understands the ideas after they've been abstracted. So that's two objects, two powers. So then he goes on to the memory, the understanding memory or the intellectual memory. So this is the ability to remember whatever ideas have already been understood by the intellect. Because the understanding is something animals don't have, this is a power that animals don't have, right? So this aspect of memory, something animals don't have. So animals have sensitive souls, which sense and remember particulars. Particulars are things like smells, shapes, or specific events that actually happened in the past. So men can remember all these things, but we can also remember universals, which are abstract ideas like dog and man, or things like courage, love, and understanding. So the intellectual memory is identical with the possible intellect, because they have the same object, which is one to receive ideas, and then one to keep those ideas that have been received. He then talks about the reason, which is also identical with the understanding. He says, quote, to understand is to apprehend quite simply an intelligible truth. To reason is to move from one thing understood to another so as to know an intelligible truth. So when we reason, we compare two ideas that we understand and then make a judgment about them. So that's why this is also part of the possible intellect. It still deals with those same ideas. So what's interesting is actually angels have no use for reason because their understanding is so perfect that once they understand an idea, they understand all the applications immediately. Animals also have no reason, but because they have no ideas to think about, right? So just to sum up, we talked about the two powers, which are the possible intellect and the agent intellect, one with the possibility of understanding any idea and one with the power to abstract those ideas from the material world. We talked about the memory of the understanding, which is identical with the possible intellect. It has the power to keep the ideas that have been received. And then we talked about reason, which is the process by which we compare known ideas in our understanding to arrive at new ideas. So I hope that I've introduced you to some new ideas that you can retain in your understanding. And I hope I've cleared up any doubts that you've had about the contents of question 79 of the Prima of Aquinas' Summa.